Afterglow Movie Net, Saturday, 10:30 p.m., W5FC. W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we start Skynet? This is N5BB. Okay. Now I'm getting Echo Link up. Okay. This is N5BB starting Skynet. Sorry for the delay. I'll be your net control for this session of this Dallas Amateur Radio Club net. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy and space in general. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break followed by your call sign. Is there any emergency traffic at this time? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me, N5BB. And stations are reminded to identify at the end of each of your transmissions. Then I know you're finished talking. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink 37247. And I am looking at Echolink right now, and it looks like Kelly's already making comments about Chaz, which would be good. Let's see. Tonight's topics: astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org. That's Whiskey Fried Chicken.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You do not need to be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long, instructions in several parts. I'm going to go through this very fast. General announcements: Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, National Space Society, discussion topic of the evening by your net control station, What's Up by Chaz, space exploration and space history, constellations of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, and visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. Followed, if we have extra time, the astronomical questions and answers and the 73 rounds. So let's start with any short-time check-ins. If we have any short-time check-in stations they have to leave early, please come now with your call sign, name, and location. Well, that was short. Okay, do we have any general RF check-ins? We'll get to Echolink later. Any RF check-ins for Skynet? Please come now. This is N5BB, net control.
This is
Alpha Charlie 9, Kilo Victor, Romeo Griffin.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray, Tom, Louisville.
Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
Okay, let's pause right there because it was a horrible double or triple. I recognize AC9KV Romy, a weak station that was not intelligible, KE5ICX Tom, and K5KTX Kelly. Who are the next stations, please? Go ahead.
Kilo Golf 5, Oscar Mike Romeo, Marcia in Dallas.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in DeSoto.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Kilo Echo 5, Victor Juliet Sierra, currently in Forney.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, Mesquite.
This is Kilo India 5, Golf Romeo Hotel, Melissa in Dallas.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
This is Kilo 5, Alpha November Papa, Allen in Dallas. November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, Jay, near Weatherford.
Okay, let's pause there. I recognize KG5OMR. Good evening, Marcia. WB50ZL, hi, Brenda. KF5ZBL, Bill. And I believe it was Kilo Echo 5, Victor Juliet Sierra. Was that Carl in Forney? Please confirm.
Yes, good evening, Bill. This is David in Forney. Kilo Echo 5, Victor Juliet Sierra.
Wow, David, I don't know how I messed your name up. That was really bad. Okay, I recognize KE5VJS. I recognize Chaz, KF5GHA, who is or has renewed. So he's with us for another decade, maybe, depending on all of our life expectancies. I have KI5GRH, Melissa, and let's see, KG5WZL, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton. Did I get that right, James?
Roger.
Very good. And Alan in Dallas is a Kilo India 5 ANP. I should know by now, Alan, but I never can remember the second letter of your call.
Kilo 5, Alpha November Papa.
Oh, that's because there isn't another letter at the front. K5ANP. We got it. NT5TM, hello, Tony. And J, KG5BZP. Okay, do we have any other RF check-ins? This is N5BB.
November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay in Mesquite.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Echo India Uniform. David, St. Paul, Texas.
N5OF, Clay, and KG5DIU. Hello, David. Do we have any other RF check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas.
Kilo Bravo 5.
Okay, I recognize KG5APL. The next station, I heard Kilo Bravo 5 and nothing else. Please try again.
Kilo Bravo 9 Sierra Oscar Kilo. Sorry, radio was cutting out.
Okay, I got Kilo Bravo 9 Sierra Oscar Kilo. What was your name and location?
Sean, Fort Worth.
That was JOHN in Fort Worth.
KB9, SOK in Fort Worth, Sean.
Oh, Sean, S-H-A-U or W-N. Okay, I got it that time, Sean. Okay, KB9 SOK. Okay, do we have any other RF check-ins? This is N5BB. Okay. Now let's look at Echolink, which is being completely consumed with the fact that Chaz is sticking with amateur radio. So, let's see, W0MBC, Shane and Bethany, do you want to come in on voice?
Hello, Dallas. This is W0MBC, Shane.
And Bethany.
Yes, Katie Craigie.
And a very good evening to you, Shane and Bethany. We have you. I'd also like to recognize KI5BNP, Luis. Do you want to come on voice, Luis? Tell us where you are.
Yes, this is Kilo India 5, Bravo November Papa, Luis in Fort Worth.
Welcome, Luis. Thank you for joining our net tonight, KI5BNP. Okay, I'd also like to recognize KF5PLL, Kilo Fox 5, Phase Lock Loop, Huey. Huey, you want to come on voice and tell us where you're located? Well, I guess Huey can't make it on audio. Good evening, Huey. I'd also like to recognize K5JDW John up in Norman, Oklahoma. You want to come on voice, John? Okay, Huey, I got your message on text. KF5PLL, Huey is in Richardson. Somebody else, unknown station, tried to hook up on Echolink there. It didn't come through. But I do get N5IMS, JJ, and Carrollton is in listen-only mode tonight. Hello, JJ. Did I miss any other stations on Echolink? This is or on RF, any mode. This is N5BB, net control for Skynet.
Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John in Norman, Oklahoma.
Yes, I got you last go-around, John. K5JDW, I recognize you. Okay, two more stations have popped in there. KJ4ZFU. iPhone user. Kilo Juliet 4 Zulu Fox uniform. Do you want to come on either on text or voice? Let us know what your name is and your location, please. Whoop, he disappeared. He or she left us. So I guess not. So I also want to recognize KF5THB Brent, who I believe is in Henrietta. Is that correct, Brent?
Tonight I'm up in Oklahoma, camping out near the farm at Ellick, Oklahoma. So, hey everybody in Texas, thanks for picking me up. KFI-THB, back to net.
Very good there, Brent. KF5THB, you're coming in great there on the audio. Okay, so one last try. Do we have any other check-ins on any modes to Skynet? This is N5BB, net control.
Kilo Golf 5, Uniform, Kilo Uniform, David, Mesquite.
Didn't know if you got me, John, Norman, Oklahoma. K5JW.
Yes, for the third time, I gotcha, John. K5JDW and KG5UKU, David, in Mesquite. I got you also. Okay, do we have any other stations who would like to check in to Skynet? Please come down. Okay, nothing heard, so we're going to go on to the next order of business. Do we have any general announcements about amateur radio, astronomy, space, or things of interest to licensed hams? If so, please come in now with your call sign only. This is N5BB with Skynet.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Hi, Tony. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Bill. I have two reminders, one of which is very earthly, one of which is out of this world. The earthly one is, of course, that we are very close to Mars right now. If you haven't been outside and looking up in the past few weeks, oh, tisk, tisk. Be a good Skynet listener. Go out and look. I dredged out my Galileo scope from back in 2009, and I've been looking at Mars. I can't see any details, but it's kind of neat that it's not just a faint star. It shows a disk with some smudges on it. So whenever the weather permits, this is a great time to go look at the fourth planet. And probably everyone knows that, but I just have to give everybody an extra push in case there's somebody out there who hasn't taken a look yet. Now, our more earthly announcement, which is perhaps not quite right in time and space, perhaps it's from the future or the past, is that tonight's Afterglow movie discussion will be focusing on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. We discussed this movie 3 years ago, but that was 3 years ago. It's time to talk about it again. Our topic of tonight at the Afterglow movie discussion, 10:30-ish, is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Be excellent to each other. NT5 PM.
Yeah, I think he'd put excellent in scare quotes. Thank you very much, Tony. Does anyone have any questions about Tony's item? Or do we have any other news items? This is N5BB with Skynet. Since Tony mentioned Mars, I've got a news item which combines amateur radio and Mars. How about that? There is a station, ham in British Columbia, Canada, Scott Tilley, VE7TIL, that is a homebrew dish antenna, which is, I think it's 2 feet in diameter. It's not very large. And he has now heard on X-band, he has now heard the NASA Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. That's the MRO. So the MRO, one of the things it transmits is an X-band carrier with no data or telemetry that NASA uses it for Doppler tracking. And he was able to use his homemade satellite dish to hear the orbiter, like a software-defined kind of radio, and he was able to get a signature of it with the Doppler and verify versus the known orbit, and so he actually knows that he's looking at the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, which is really cool. In the latest issue of the ARO letter from October the 8th, 2 days ago, you can see a picture of his antenna. But it's hard to get an idea of the size. If you go searching around for some more information about Scott Tilley, VE7TIL, you can see that the antenna is very small. And it's very obviously homemade. This station, this ham, Scott Tilley, is well known for the last year or two. He has found some zombie satellites and spy satellites. So there was, in 2018, there was a satellite called IMAGE, Imager for Magnetopause to Aurora Global Exploration. It's a NASA spacecraft. They believed it to have died in 2005. But he was able to see the signal. And so this delighted space scientist that didn't realize it was still there, after 15 years, well, after 13 years, he found it. Okay. Any other news items or questions before we move ahead? This is N5BB with Skynet. Here are some general announcements. AMSAT has multiple nets available to Dallas residents. Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central Time on Echolink, you can go to, under groups, you can look for asterisk, AMSAT asterisk. You can also look at the website for this net, which is www.amsat.com. amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston. And there's two local AMSAT nets. Most Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. on this repeater, we have the Dallas East AMSAT net. Tom in 5HP is normally the net control. It does not meet on the first Tuesday night, and if there is a fifth one, I'm not sure if it's going to meet, but it definitely meets on the first, third, and I believe fourth Tuesday night. So Tuesday night, 8 p.m., listen on this frequency. Then every Wednesday evening at 9 p.m., go over to the Arlington repeater, Arlington Amateur Radio Club repeater at 147.14 megahertz, or the AMSAT WestNet in the DFW area. So again, Tuesday night, this repeater, 8 p.m. Wednesday night, 9 p.m., Arlington, 147.14 repeater. So then I'll go through this really quick. There's a lot of nets every week here on this repeater, 146.88 DARC repeater. We have on Mondays ham fixing nets and GeekNet and other stuff happening different nights, different Mondays. I just mentioned the Tuesday net. On Fridays at 7:30 p.m. we have the CERT City Simulation Net about emergency responder kind of thing. CERT. That's again Friday at 7:30. Saturday is the Night of Net. We net from 7 to 8 p.m. Skynet from 9 to 10:30. Afterglow from 10:30 until about midnight. Then we have every night, nearly, of the month at 6:30 p.m. we have ARL National Traffic Net on this frequency at 6:30 p.m. on this frequency. And then at 10:30 p.m. every night of the week, we have that same net on the Irving 146.72 megahertz repeater. We have Monday through Friday at noon, the lunch bunch with our own Romy AC9KV as normally the net control. And then the first and third Sundays on Sunday evening at 7 p.m. we have the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air, first and third Sundays of every month. Okay, so enough of all that. Tom, do you want to give the afterglow information in 5EB?
Sure, I'll be happy to. This is KE5ICX. The phone booth traveled quickly through the time currents with swirls of colorful time particles. Suddenly, another similarly outfitted time machine in the form of a police call box headed the other way almost collided with the phone booth. "Dude!" exclaimed one of the phone booth occupants, shouted at the lone police call box occupant. "You're on the wrong side of the road of the time stream." The stranger replied back, "Oh, you are on the wrong side of the time stream." Of course, this all depended if you were from the Commonwealth Gallifrey, where you passed on the left, or if you were from San Dimas, California, where you passed on the right. Dude, join us for one of the intentional science fiction comedies that we all live to tell about, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, complete with music from Big Pig. That's tonight at 10:30 p.m., and I didn't realize we'd watched this before. I've seen it dozens of times. I just didn't know we saw it together. KE5ICX, back to that.
You forgot about the third doctor. He's in a DeLorean going through the time stream. And the one in that phone booth, which doctor is he? Which doctor? Okay, next, we have Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas. Hey, Chaz, let us know what's going on with TAS. This is N5BB and Skynet.
Thank you, Bill. The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas club meeting will be on October the 23rd. That's a Friday at 7:30 p.m. with a guest speaker of David Eicher. David Eicher is an American editor, writer, and popularizer of astronomy and space. He has been editor-in-chief of Astronomy magazine since 2002. He's an author, co-author, or editor of 23 books on science and American history, and is known for having founded a magazine of astronomical observing called Deep Sky Monthly when he was only 15 years old and in high school. David's most recent book is called Galaxies Inside the Universe Star Cities. TAS Club members will receive an email link to the meeting, which is, of course, will be virtual, and they'll receive that link about a week or so in advance of the meeting. And hopefully we might, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, might resume face-to-face meetings sometime in the future and maybe have public observing sessions after all of this shelter-in-place is over. Of course, we've already talked about it. The Mars and Earth Close Approach was on October the 6th. Thank you, Tony, for telling everyone else about that, because it's still a good target to go out and take a look at. Pull out your own telescope. We would have had public observing sessions, but of course we can't do that. If you want to find more details out about Texas Astronomical Society, go to texasastro.org for details. Back to you, Bill. KF5JHA.
Thank you, Chaz. Do we have any questions or any check-ins? N5BB, Skynet.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WV4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
We got you, Ted, WB4MFI. Good to hear you on tonight. Do we have any other check-ins or questions? Okay, next it's my turn to give some information about the National Space Society. So this is excuse me, having a little trouble with the allergies that have been coming through the area through the dust and stuff. So this is N5BB. I happen to be the membership director of the National Space Society North Texas chapter. And we normally meet on the second Sunday of every month at about 4 p.m. over at Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving on Highway 183. But because of COVID, we have been meeting online. And our next meeting is going to be tomorrow afternoon, Sunday. We're going to open up the Echolink thing at 3:30, and our speaker will begin at 4. The topic will be interesting. It will be about spacesuit materials by Amy Ross. Amy is the daughter of an astronaut, Jerry Ross, and she is, I think, the manager or head of an area that is designing spacesuits. And right now they're trying to figure out how to make spacesuits that'll work when you're outside for long periods in Mars or on the moon. So there haven't been humans on the moon in a long time, about nearly 50 years. So one of the things she's doing is they put some swatches of different types of spacesuit materials on a little plate which is on the Mars Perseverance rover, which is on its way to Mars right now. And there is a high-powered instrument called Sherlock. It's a long acronym. But Sherlock is used for analyzing rocks and other things. But it's arranged so they can swing this in front of the Sherlock instrument, and Sherlock can look at the detailed characteristics of these spacesuit materials after they've been up there on Mars for a year or whatever, exposed to sun and micrometeorites and all kinds of things. So this is very exciting. Well, she's going to talk about that tomorrow. If you would like to visit, if you would like to listen to this WebEx as a visitor, I'm hosting the WebEx so I can add you. I've already added one person that's listening here tonight. If you'd like me to add you, send me an email. Send it to space@byram.net. That's SPACE@BYROM.net. Or you can also send me a message at N5BB, that's November 5 Bravo Bravo, @ARRL.net. Tell me your name and where you're located, and request that you'd like to listen in tomorrow, and I will be glad to send you a WebEx invite for that meeting. Okay, there's not much going on with National Space Society locally because we can't go to museums and other things, and there are a lot of National Space Society internal and some external web events occurring several times a month, which are pretty exciting, talking about the future of space, Mars and moon exploration, etc. But we don't have any in-person events until the COVID stuff lets up. Okay, so do we have any questions about National Space Society before we move ahead? Or late check-ins. This is N5BB, Skynet. Okay, I see one other station on Echolink. I see N5AJD. Aaron, I'm really positive I recognize your call there. Would you like to come in on voice at all? I guess not. Well, Aaron, we got you checked in. November 5, Alpha, Juliet Delta. Okay, next item. Unfortunately, you have to listen to me a little bit longer because it's time for the discussion topic of the evening by the net control. So I'm going to discuss some news which came out on October the 1st from JPL. The title of this, I'm going to read some of this article. This, again, was released by NASA JPL. And the title is Echo Mapping in Faraway Galaxies Could Measure Vast Cosmic Distances. So anytime they're talking about vast cosmic distances, there's always interesting science involved. Here is a subtitle. Matter swirling around supermassive black holes creates bursts of light that echo in nearby dust clouds. These traveling signals could serve as a new cosmic yardstick. When you look up at the night sky, how do you know whether the specks of light that you see are bright and far away or relatively faint and close by? One way is to find this out is to compare how much light the object actually emits with how bright it appears. The difference between its true luminosity and its apparent brightness reveals an object's distance from the observer. However, measuring the absolute luminosity of a celestial object is challenging, especially with black holes, which don't directly emit light by themselves. But the supermassive black holes that lie at the center of most galaxies provide a loophole. They often pull incredibly large amounts of matter around them, forming hot disks that can radiate brightly. Measuring the luminosity of the bright disk would allow astronomers to gauge the distance to the black hole and the galaxy it lives in. Distance measurements not only help scientists create a better three-dimensional map of the universe, they can also provide information about how and when objects formed in the early universe. In a new study, astronomers used a technique that some have nicknamed echo mapping to measure the luminosity of black hole disks in over 500 galaxies. Published last month in the Astrophysical Journal, the study adds support to the idea that this approach could be used to measure the distances between Earth and these faraway galaxies. This is N5BB and Skynet. The process of echo mapping, also known as reverberation mapping, starts when the disk of hot plasma, this is atoms that have lost their electrons, close to the black hole gets brighter, sometimes even releasing short flares of visible light. This is light that can be seen by the human eye. That visible light travels away from that plasma disk and eventually runs into a common feature of most supermassive black hole systems, an enormous cloud of dust in the shape of a donut, which you also refer to as a torus. Together, the disk and the torus form a sort of bullseye, with the accretion disk wrapped tightly around the black hole, followed by consecutive rings of slightly cooler plasma and gas, and then finally, way out, the dust torus, which makes up the widest outermost ring in the bullseye. When a flash of light from this accretion disk reaches the inner wall of the dusty torus, the light gets absorbed, causing the dust to heat up and release infrared light. This brightening of the torus is a direct response to, or one might say an echo, of the changes happening in the disk. The distance from the accretion disk to the inside of the dust torus can be vast. Billions or trillions of miles. Even light traveling at 186,000 miles or 300 kilometers per second can take months or years to cross this distance. If astronomers can observe both the initial flare of visible light in the accretion disk and the subsequent infrared brightening in the torus, they can also measure the time it took light to travel between these two structures. But because light travels at a standard speed, this information then gives astronomers the distance from the disk to the torus. This is N5BB and Skynet. Scientists can then use the distance measurement to calculate the disk's luminosity and, in theory, its distance from Earth. So, anyway, there's more details here I'm not going into, I'm going to skip down a bit. Because the light can take months or years to traverse the space between the accretion disk and the torus, astronomers need data that spans decades. This new study relies on nearly 2 decades of visible light observations of black hole accretion disk captured by several ground-based telescopes. The infrared light emitted by the dust torus was detected by NASA's Near-Earth Object Wide Field Infrared Survey Explorer. This is a spacecraft that was named WISE, but it ran out of some cooling fluid, and now it's called NEO-WISE. The spacecraft surveys the entire sky about once every 6 months, providing astronomers with repeated opportunities to observe galaxies and look for those light echoes. This study used 14 surveys of the sky by WISE and NEO-WISE, it's the same satellite, just different years, collected between 2010 and 2019. In some galaxies, the light took more than 10 years to traverse the distance from the accretion disk and the dust, making them the longest echoes ever measured outside the Milky Way galaxy. I'm skipping more. Due to multiple factors, the author's distance measurements currently lack precision. They need to study a lot more about the structure of the inner regions of the dust donut encircling the black hole. This satellite doesn't have the entire infrared frequency range. So in the mid-2020s, NASA plans to launch the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope. And also the SPHERE mission, spectrophotometer for the history of the universe, etc., satellites. The combination of these will survey the entire sky in multiple infrared wavelengths. Could also help the technique. So, anyway, I'm going to skip through and just say that's all I'm going to talk about. So, the cool thing is they're using a satellite that was originally placed in hibernation in 2011 after it completed its primary mission. Then in 2013, they reactivated that WISE satellite and renamed it NEO-WISE to look at near-Earth objects, which are, of course, could be dangerous to the Earth. But this project is using them to look at things which are nowhere near the Earth. They're a vast distance away in far galaxies. Anyway, I thought this was a very interesting new method, and just shows you the amount of data and detail from multiple telescopes that goes into a lot of the current astronomical discoveries. It's just not one person looking through a telescope and seeing something. It's a team looking at data from multiple telescopes and satellites over periods of 20 years, and then doing a lot of data analysis to discover interesting things. That's all I've got. Does anybody have a question before we move ahead? This is N5BB with Skynet. Any late check-ins? This is N5BB. I see KX7WTF, Sean and Denton on Echolink. Hi, Sean.
Evening, everyone. Just checking in for the numbers. KX7WTF.
We gotcha, and you're just in time to listen to Chaz discuss what's up. Chaz, what's going on if we go outside and look up, as long as there's no clouds? KF5JHA of the group, N5BB. Go right ahead.
Well, thank you, Bill. Good evening, everyone. Yes, I am KF5JHA, and my degree is in astrophysics, and I'm the astrophysics lab manager at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up. Slide number 2 for Mr. Slide Changer. The moon was at its third quarter on October the 9th. That was yesterday. So the current phase of the moon is a waning crescent. The moon will be new on October the 16th. The moon will be at its first quarter phase on October 23rd. And we will have a full moon on October 31st, Halloween. That will be a blue moon on October the 31st. That is when we have the second full moon in the same month, a blue moon. On average, we get a blue moon about every 2.5 years, or about once in a blue moon. We're up to slide number 3. I've been talking about this for the last month or so. About every 26 months, both Mars and Earth are on the same side of the solar system. That means they are close to each other about every 26 months. And NASA uses this to their advantage by often sending spacecraft to Mars about every 26 months when the two planets are close together. The closest approach of Earth and Mars just happened a few days ago on October the 6th. Again, Tony let us know early in Skynet about that. Opposition is when the object is opposite the sun. That's 180 degrees apart in right ascension in the sky as viewed from the Earth. On October 13th is the opposition of Mars, while October the 6th was the closest approach of Mars. Back on August 28th, 2003, the distance between the Earth and Mars was only 34.65 million miles. On the last close approach, Mars and the Earth back in July 31st of 2018, they were separated by only 35.8 million miles. This close approach just happened a few days ago. We were separated by 38.6 million miles. This really next close approach of Mars and the Earth won't be until 2035, but it will be the year 2287 on August 28th for Mars to get closer than it was in the year 2003. Unfortunately, there was no public observing sessions for this Mars and Earth close approach, but several private ones that I heard about. So you can still grab your own telescope, pull it out, like Tony did, and head outside during the first part of October. Actually, anytime this month. It'll be a great time to look at Mars. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 5. On October 22nd, look in the southwestern evening sky to find the Moon, Jupiter, and Saturn all in conjunction with each other. Saturn and Jupiter are getting closer and closer together and will be in conjunction on December the 20th and on the 21st in the evening sky. The last great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn was in the year 2000 on May the 31st. But on December 20th and 21st of this year, the two planets will be so close together, low in the southwestern evening sky, they will look like one object. And in telescopes, you'll be able to see both the planets in the same field of view at the same time. Slide number 6, looking in east in the evening of October the 28th, you'll find Mars and the Moon in conjunction. Kelly was commenting just the other night, we had Mars and the Moon in conjunction. It was nice to see. Mars will still be close enough at the end of October to still get a look at it through a telescope really well. Slide number 7, let's talk showers in October. There are 5 meteor showers worth talking about in October. 3 of them have already occurred. A minor meteor shower, the Epsilon Geminids, will peak on the night of October 17th and 18th with just a few meteors. But one of the major annual meteor showers, the Orionids, will peak on the night of October 21st and 22nd with about 20 to 30 meteors per hour. It's about one every 2 minutes. I always suggest camping at a state park to watch the meteors, because we have like 80 parks and wildlife preserves that you can camp at. For more details about meteors and meteor showers, visit the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org or the International Meteor Organization, IMO.net. We're up to slide number 8. The Milky Way runs through Sagittarius, then through Scutum and Aquila, where Spica is located. Then the Milky Way continues to directly overhead through Cygnus, where we find the star Deneb. Then the Milky Way touches Cepheus and continues into Cassiopeia. Then finally the Milky Way ends its arc across the sky in Perseus. So this time of year, the Milky Way in the evening goes from the southwestern horizon directly overhead to the northeastern horizon. Try to get away from the city lights over the next couple of weeks to enjoy the brightest part of the Milky Way stretching across the sky. And this is KF5 JHA, and this is Skynet. There is a story from long ago about King Cepheus and Queen Cassiopeia and their beautiful daughter Andromeda. Cassiopeia bragged that her daughter was more beautiful than the sea nymph, but the god of the sea didn't like that statement. He sent a sea monster, Cetus, to ravage the coast of the country. Consulting an oracle, the king and the queen of Ethiopia found that the only way to get rid of the sea monster was to chain their daughter Andromeda to rock and let the sea monster Cetus kill her. Well, they didn't want to do that, but after a few more coastal villages were ramshacked by the monster Cetus, they had no choice. So Andromeda was chained to a rock by the edge of the sea. The sea monster was just about ready to kill her when our hero, Perseus, flying on a winged horse, you know the name of that thing, isn't it? Pegasus, swoops down and kills the monster and saves Andromeda. All these characters are constellations that are in our current evening sky. You can see back that there was no football games back then, or TV shows, or cell phones, or movies for entertainment. So they use their imaginations in the sky to see these characters from their stories. Slide number 10, Queen Cassiopeia can be found by looking for the number 3 looking group of stars just to the right of Polaris in the northern sky. Then King Cepheus is just above Polaris, and it looks like an upside-down simple house. The flying horse, Pegasus, is nearly overhead, and its body looks like a square. The northeast corner of the square of Pegasus has 2 lines of stars representing Andromeda, and just below Cassiopeia and Andromeda, you can find Perseus. To me, Perseus looks like a seal with his nose in the air balancing a ball. And actually, Perseus is balancing 2 star clusters called the double cluster. Cetus is just now rising in the east and looks like a whale. Of course, this is a whale of a story, isn't it? Okay. Slide number 11. Once again, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be on October the 23rd. That's the 4th Friday at 7:30 p.m. It's a virtual meeting on Zoom. David Eicher, the editor-in-chief of Astronomy Magazine since 2002, will be our featured speaker. Pretty cool. If you want more details about that, check out texasastro.org for details. Now, slide number 12. Do you have any questions out there in Radio Land, or do you need a fill on any information, or do you just have a general astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I might know the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question.
KG5 APL.
Yes, come now. What's your question? Go ahead.
Hi, thanks. This is KG5 APL. There's been a lot of talk about heading out with doing some observations, and I have a regular pair of just generic binoculars that I've been getting out and looking up at some things, but I was curious, is there any difference between some just regular binoculars used for viewing things here in the distant fields versus binoculars that are more fine-tuned for astronomical observations, either the optics, the focusing, or whatnot? Because I find that while I'm able to focus really well on things, several hundred yards away, distant objects, that being the sky, stars are much more harder to focus on. All right, thank you much. KG5 APL.
That's a great question. Actually, there are several different things you can do. With a regular pair of binoculars, you can see an awful lot of things. The Milky Way, you can see star clusters. You can even see the craters on the moon. Now, focusing a pair of binoculars is interesting. There's a general focus, usually in between the two parts of the binoculars that you can focus in. And some of them are better, some of them are not as good. And, of course, on almost all the pairs of binoculars, you can focus one side of the pair of binoculars to fine-tune one eye versus the other eye, because both of your eyes are usually at a different focus. And if you focus one on the left eye and then focus with the one on the right eye, then you probably have a better way of focusing on things, not just in the sky, but also for things on the Earth. Now, if you get larger optics, you'll probably need a tripod so you can hold your binoculars steady. If you have your binoculars held steady, you can actually see the moons of Jupiter. Even with a pair of 10 by 50 binoculars, you can see the moons of Jupiter. I have a pair of 20 by 80 binoculars on a tripod. You can see an awful lot of things with that. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah, for the most part. Thank you. I guess just the follow-up question, though, is are there really any difference between binoculars designed or advertised, I guess, for astronomical observations versus some regular ones? Thank you much, KG5APL.
Usually the astronomical ones have a little bit better optics. They probably have special coatings on them depending on the brand and the price you pay for them. So, yes, in general, there's a slight difference between them. But I usually get the big pair of binoculars so it can suck up fainter objects a lot better. So that's what I would suggest doing, is getting a bigger pair of binoculars. That's why I have a pair of 20 by 80s. Actually, I've loaned them out this weekend for somebody who's camping out this weekend. So I want to welcome the students from Brookhaven College that are listening to and watching Skynet tonight. Students, just as a reminder, if you want to get stargazing class credit for this, then remember to fill out the form within the next 48 hours. So as the moon wanes right now in this part of October, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for. We really do need that. Until next week, keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is Chaz, KF5JHA, back to Bill, our net control.
Thanks, Chaz. This is N5BB and Skynet. Do we have any late check-ins?
A relay?
Go ahead, relay.
Hey, Bill, add Billy, KF5PDS. She says she's having trouble getting into Echolink, so she's over here on chat on Facebook. She's been listening and watching, KE5I6.
Very good. Hi there, Billy. Okay, next. Time, I believe, for Kelly. Kelly, are you doing the space exploration and space history this week? Go ahead. This is N5BB.
Thanks, Bill. It is me. This is K5KTX, and good evening, everyone. I do hope that all of you got to see the Mars-Moon conjunction last Friday. It was amazing, and I wished I'd had my telescope, but I didn't have it with me, so it was pretty amazing. So we do have several planets visible right now, but Mars has really been the focus for the past week, so I thought I would provide some updates on a couple of Mars missions. So to start, after touching down on the red planet February the 18th, 2021, so just coming up in a couple of months or a few months, NASA's Mars 2020 Perseverance rover will scour Jezero crater to help us understand its geologic history and search for signs of past microbial life. But the six-wheeled robot won't be looking just at the surface of Mars. The rover will peer deep below it with a ground-penetrating radar called RIMFAX. Unlike similar instruments aboard Mars orbiters, RIMFAX will be the first ground-penetrating radar set on the surface of Mars. This will give scientists much higher resolution data than spaceborne radars can provide while focusing on the specific areas that Perseverance will explore. Taking a more focused look at this terrain will help the rover's team understand how features in Jezero Crater formed over time. RIMFAX, which is short for Radar Imager for Mars's Subsurface Experiment, can provide high detailed views and 3D models of subsurface structures down to at least 30 feet underground. In doing so, the instruments will reveal hidden layers of geology and help find clues to past environments on Mars, especially those that may have provided the conditions necessary for supporting life. While Mars is a frigid desert today, scientists suspect that microbes may have lived in Jezero during wetter times billions of years ago, and that evidence of such ancient life may be preserved in sediments in the crater. Information from RIMFAX will help pinpoint areas for deeper study by instruments on the rover that search for chemical, mineral, and textural clues found within rocks that may be signs of past microbial life. Ultimately, the team will collect dozens of drill core samples with Perseverance, seal them in tubes that will be deposited on the surface for return by future missions. That way, these first samples from another planet can be studied in laboratories with equipment too large to take to Mars. Scientists believe that the 28-mile-wide Jezero crater formed when a large object collided with Mars, kicking up rocks from deep in the planet's crust. More than 3.5 billion years ago, river channels spilled into the crater, creating that was home to a fan-shaped river delta. Scientists hope RIMFAX will shed light on how the delta formed. This is not so easy, based on surface images only, because dust is covering everything, so you may not necessarily see all the changes in geology. The science team will stack successive radar soundings to create a two-dimensional subsurface image of the crater floor. Eventually, data will be combined with images from a camera on the rover to create a 3D topographical image. The instrument employs the same type of ground-penetrating radar used here on Earth to find buried utilities, underground caverns, and the like. In fact, the RIMFAX principal investigator, Svein Erik Hamran, uses it to study glaciers. Tens of millions of miles away on Mars, however, he and his colleagues will be relying on Perseverance to do the work as it roams through Jezero Crater. Some measurements will be done while the rover is stationary, but most measurements will actually be gathered while the rover is driving. A key objective for Perseverance's mission on Mars is astrobiology, including the search for signs of ancient microbial life. The rover will characterize the planet's ancient climate and geology, pave the way for human exploration of the red planet, and be the first mission to collect and cache Martian rock and regolith, or broken rock and dust. Subsequent missions currently under consideration by NASA in cooperation with the European Space Agency would send spacecraft to Mars to collect these cast samples from the surface and return them to Earth for in-depth analysis. Currently, the Perseverance rover is traveling at about 64,000 miles per hour and has completed just over 41% of its trip to Mars. Now, the last Mars mission, kind of not heard very much about it, so I decided to try to research it and find a little bit of information. You may remember on the Mars Insight mission, this was a lander that landed a couple of years ago. You may remember that the self-drilling heat flow and physical properties package, or HP3, known as the mole, was designed to dig up to 16 feet below the surface to measure the temperature profile of the subsurface of Mars. Last year at this time, the researchers at JPL concluded that the soil on Mars does not provide the necessary friction for drilling, causing the mole to bounce around and form a wide pit around itself rather than dig deeper. They attempted a maneuver called pinning, in which they pressed the side of the scoop against the mole location to pin the side of the wall of the hole and increase friction. Pinning was initially successful, but then the mole backed out of its hole after a few weeks, suggesting the soil is accumulating below the mole. This past June, the team reported that the mole was finally underground and was being evaluated to determine if the mole was able to dig as designed. On July 9th, it was revealed that images taken showed the mole bouncing again, indicating that it did not have sufficient friction to dig deeper. One suggested solution was to partially fill the hole with soil to increase friction. The operations team was able to use the scoop to assist the mole in digging deeper into its hole by pressing against the back. The scoop was then used to fill the hole of the partially submerged mole, burying it fully for the first time. The team hopes the mole can now dig further into the surface on its own, but may need additional assistance using the scoop once again. The team took a break in July to discuss all the issues at hand and make the arm available for other scientific activities. And since then, no further updates have been provided. Meanwhile, weather sensors on the lander stopped providing data on August the 16th, a result of an issue affecting the sensor suite's electronics. Called the Auxiliary Payload Sensor Suite, or APSS, the sensors collect data on wind speed and direction, air temperature and pressure, and magnetic fields. Throughout each Martian day or sol, InSight's main computer retrieves data stored in APSS's control computer for later transmission to orbiting spacecraft, which relay the data to Earth. APSS was put in safe mode while mission team members worked towards a diagnosis. On September the 6th, InSight's weather sensors were reset. They appeared to be operating nominally again. Although the issue that required APSS to be reset has not been determined, the team will continue to carefully monitor the situation. Now here's the cool part. You can actually go to the mission website, which is mars.nasa.gov/insight/weather to see the latest weather at InSight's landing site. It's pretty cool. And in space history this week, this is a big one. October the 4th, 1957. You remember this maybe? I wasn't alive, but some of you may remember. The Soviet Union launched the first ever artificial satellite into orbit, or ushering in the space age. They named it Sputnik, which means fellow traveler in Russian. Sputnik could be seen orbiting in the night sky with its distinct beeping telemetry broadcast around the world. NASA was formed within a year of the Soviet satellite's launch. And almost a year later, October the 7th, 1958, Project Mercury was established. This landmark project put the second person and first American in space, Alan Shepard, on May 5th, 1961, aboard the Freedom 7 spacecraft. It later sent 5 other astronauts into space, all part of the first astronaut group, the Mercury 7. The mission objectives for Project Mercury were simple: get a crewed spacecraft into orbital flight around Earth, research an astronaut's ability to function in space, and safely recover the astronaut and spacecraft. By the project's completion in 1963, all of these objectives were met several times. The first crewed spaceflight of Project Mercury was flown by Shepard and lasted 15 minutes. As more launches took place, NASA learned that humans could tolerate the effects of microgravity. The last mission, flown by Gordon Cooper, lasted nearly a day and a half. Also on October the 7th, back in 1985, the Space Shuttle Atlantis landed after her first mission, STS-51J. Atlantis was NASA's 4th space-rated space shuttle, and she flew 33 missions over the course of 25 years. STS-51J carried a classified payload for the Department of Defense. Atlantis missions performed the full range of shuttle roles, from scientific experiments to docking with the Russian space station Mir. When linked, Atlantis and Mir together formed the largest spacecraft ever orbited at the time. Atlantis flew the final space shuttle mission, STS-135, in 2011. If you want to see Atlantis for yourself, she is on display in the Visitor Center at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Just bring a box of Kleenex is my recommendation. On October the 8th, 2012, SpaceX launched its first mission to the ISS, delivering cargo to the station. SpaceX is the first private commercial entity to deliver a payload to the ISS using its own rocket and spacecraft, the Falcon 9 and the Dragon. Since this first mission, SpaceX has conducted a total of 19 successful resupply flights to the ISS, the last occurring in March. The next one is currently scheduled for next month. October the 9th, 1957, President Dwight Eisenhower offered his congratulations on the successful launch of Sputnik to the USSR in a press release. In a subsequent news conference, Eisenhower sought to relieve public concern for the perceived lag in the U.S. space program, saying never has it been considered as a race, merely an engagement on our part to put up a vehicle of this kind during the period that I've previously already mentioned, where Eisenhower was referring to the International Geophysical Year. And finally, on this date, October the 10th, back in 1967, the Outer Space Treaty went into effect. The treaty, formally titled the Treaty on Principles Governing the Activities of States in the Exploration and Use of Outer Space, including the Moon and other celestial bodies, included two key provisions. One, the limitation of nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction to the Earth, forbidding them from being placed in orbit or on any celestial bodies. And two, the prohibition of the use of celestial bodies for military purposes, such as to house military bases or to facilitate weapons testing. The treaty also prevented any nation from laying claim to celestial bodies. And that's all I've got this evening. This is K5KTX.
Very good, Kelly. Does anybody have any questions or comments about Kelly's item or items, or which were very interesting, I thought, or any other check-ins in 5BB? And Kelly, I just looked at the website there for the daily weather report, and that wind speed is sometimes up over 50 miles per hour, but the wind pressure is like, what is it, 1/100th, less than 1/100th of Earth's sea level. Very low atmospheric pressure, even though it's got a pretty good wind speed. And it's very cold. The maximum temperature is usually no more than about 12 degrees Fahrenheit, and the minimum is negative 141. Okay, this is Skynet, N5BB, net control. Let's see, Kelly, did you have anything else about the history of space, N5BB?
No, I don't have anything else. I did want to mention that InSight is located near the equator on Mars, so you can imagine what the weather might be if it was a little closer to the poles. K5KTX.
Very good, Kelly. I just got off my page here on the script. I want to make absolutely sure you finished everything. Okay, now it's time for Chaz again. We're getting kind of late in the net. So, Chaz, you want to give Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week and make it kind of snappy? In 5BB, Skynet.
I thought snap green beans were earlier in the year. Oh, yes. Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019. With a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year, out of the total of 88 constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. In her honor, we've continued the tradition of a constellation per week, and Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week this week is Microscopium. So we'll put it under a microscope. Microscopium represents the microscope and is not associated with any myths. Microscopium is the 66th constellation in size. It has no Messier object, and it does not have any formally named stars, so it only has the Drake designations for stars, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, those kind of things. We're on slide number 15. Theta Microscopii is the third brightest star in the constellation. It consists of a wide double star, Theta 1 and Theta 2, can both be seen in binoculars and even without binoculars under ideal conditions because they're very faint. Alpha Microscopium is the fourth brightest star in the constellation. Usually Alpha is the brightest one, but stars vary in brightness over time, and, well, anyway. Alpha is a variable star with an apparent magnitude that ranges from 4.88 to 4.94 magnitude. The star is approximately 380 light years distance, and it's a spectral type G73, yellow giant star. LaSalle 8760 is another star. It's very near to us. It's only about 12.87 light years in distance with a stellar classification of M0VE because this is a variable star. It's classified as a flare star that erupts a little bit less than once every day on average. Its mass is about 60% of the sun, and it's one of the largest and brightest red dwarfs known. Slide number 16, NGC 6925 is a barred spiral galaxy. It has an apparent magnitude of 11.3. The galaxy is a lens shape and appears almost edge-on when seen from the Earth. It can be found about 3.7 degrees to the northwest of Alpha Microscopium. It was discovered by English astronomer John Herschel in July of 1834. There was also a supernova that was observed in this galaxy in the year 2011. Slide number 17 is NGC 6923. It's another spiral galaxy. It has an apparent magnitude of 12.2. It's getting kind of faint to see those kind of things even through moderate scopes. It lies approximately 36 million parsecs from the Earth. You know, let's mix parsecs and light years up. There's only a difference of 3 times the distance between the two. The galaxy was also discovered by John Herschel in the summer of 1834. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 18, I could not find any more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Microscopium, because it's not a big constellation. The Astronomical League has over 60 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects, and if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year. Slide number 19, and that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Microscopium. A microscope, and I want to thank Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell, my friends, for the research on these deep sky objects that I've used. And also I use the website constellation-guide.com for information as well. Next week I'll take a look at 2 constellations, Pisces Austronus, the Southern Fish, and Grus. What the heck is Grus? Tune in next week to find out. And this is KF5JHA. Back to our net control, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaz, for discussing that microscopic small constellation. Okay, let's move on quickly to Tom. Tom, do we have some space launches for the week we can zip through? KE5ICX and 5BB Skynet.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I'll just say 2 things. This information comes from Spaceflight Now launch schedule. Just type that into your Google and you'll find this information. I'm going to give the one launch that's most interesting out of the bunch, although they're all kind of interesting. There is a Soyuz ISS-63S launch. This is on October 14th from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. A Russian government Soyuz rocket will launch a crewed Soyuz MS-17 spacecraft to the International Space Station with members of the next expedition crew. The capsule will remain at the station for about 6 months, providing an escape pod for the residents. The rocket will fly in a Soyuz 2.1A configuration. Back to you, KE5ICX.
Okay. There are so many launches going on these days, it's hard to keep track of them all. Brenda, WB5OZL, do you have some recent astronomical discoveries to dazzle us with? This is in 5BB.
Yes, thank you. This is WB5OZL. I have one article. We really don't have time for more, and maybe not even time for this one. But it's entitled Vaporized Metal in the Air of an Exoplanet. WASP 120 WASP. is an exoplanet located 850 light years from Earth, orbiting its star in less than 2 days, a process that takes Earth a year to complete. WASP 121b is very close to its star, about 40 times closer than Earth is to the Sun. This close proximity is also the main reason for its immensely high temperature of around 2,500 to 3,000 degrees Celsius. This makes it an ideal object of study to learn more about ultra-hot worlds. Researchers led by Jens can't pronounce it, first author of the study and postdoctoral research fellow at the National Center of Competence in Research Planets at the Universities of Bern and Geneva, examined data that had been collected by the high-resolution HARPS spectrograph. They were able to show that a total of at least 7 gaseous metals occur in the atmosphere of WASP 121. WASP 121 has been extensively studied since its discovery. The earlier studies showed that there is a lot going on in its atmosphere, and this despite the fact that astronomers had assumed that ultra-hot planets have rather simple atmospheres because not many complex chemical compounds can form in such blistering heat. So how did WASP 121 come to have this unexpected complexity? Previous studies tried to explain these complex observations with theories that did not seem plausible to me. Says his name looks like Hogemakers. The studies had suspected that molecules containing the relatively rare metal vanadium were the main cause of the complex atmosphere in WASP 121. According to Hogemakers, however, this would only make sense if a more common metal, titanium, were missing in the atmosphere. So Hogemakers and his colleagues set out to find another explanation. But it turned out they were right, admits Hogemakers unequivocally. To my surprise, we actually found strong signatures of vanadium in the observations. At the same time, however, titanium was missing. This in turn confirmed Hogemakers' assumption. But the team made other unexpected discoveries. In addition to vanadium, they newly discovered 6 other metals in the atmosphere of WASP 121. Iron, chromium, calcium, sodium, magnesium, and nickel. All metals evaporated as a result of the high temperatures prevailing on WASP 121b, explains Hogemakers, thus ensuring that the air on the exoplanet consists of evaporated metals, among other things. Such detailed results allow researchers to draw conclusions about the chemical processes that take place on such planets. For example, this is a crucial skill for the not-too-distant future when larger, more sensitive telescopes and spectrographs will be developed. These will allow astronomers to study the properties of smaller, cooler, rocky planets similar to Earth. With the same techniques we use today, instead of just detecting signatures of gaseous iron or vanadium, we will be able to focus on biosignatures, signs of life, such as the signatures of water, oxygen, and methane. The extensive knowledge about the atmosphere of WASP 121b not only confirms the ultra-hot character of the exoplanet, but also underlines the fact that this field of research is entering a new era, as Hogemakers puts it. After years of cataloging what is out there, we are now no longer just taking measurements, but we are really beginning to understand what the data from the instruments show us. All right, we'll quit there. This is a couple of lines left. This is from ScienceDaily.com. Back to that. This is WB5OZL.
Thank you, Brenda. Well, it's right at closing time, so I think we'll do a quick 73 round here. Do we have any final check-ins? Billy, by the way, finally made it into Echolink. Hello, Billy. Tom, she and Chaz had difficulty getting into Echolink, so I don't know if it's I had zero difficulties. Don't know if it's just their connections or something with the interwebs or something with the Echolink setup. Anyway, do we have any last check-ins or other comments or questions before we close this net? This is N5BB Skynet. Last call.
N5 HYP, Tom and Irving, just checking in.
Very good, Tom. N5HYP. You rounded out the number to an even multiple of 10. So, tonight we had 30 hams participating on the air and on Echolink. Thanks to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We are always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. That's the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. If you'd like to try your hand at this, being a net control, contact any of the net controls or send an email to nets@w5fc.org. That's NETS at whiskey5friedchicken.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net, astronomy in general, on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org. At the conclusion of this net. That's right, don't sneak away until we're finished. Until next Saturday night, this is N5DB Bill. I'll be closing this net at 10:32 p.m. local time, returning this repeater to semi-normal amateur use. I'll turn it over to Tom, I guess, to figure out who the afterglow net control is. N5DB cleared.
All right, thank you, Bill. Great net. Well, as usual, we have about 5 minutes respite. Go powder your noses and come back here in 5 minutes. And we do have a net control. It's not me. We have a net control for the Afterglow movie net. We'll be talking about the 1985 film, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the thing that started it all. We'll see you in 5. It's KE5I6.
Tom, can I powder the top of my head instead of my nose? KF5JHA.
And look through those big binoculars. And set up the tripod. It's all very complicated.
Chaz, keep your powder dry. N5BB.
This is N5 HYP testing.
Tom, you sound good. NT5TM.
Thanks. This is N5 HYPL. Stand by for Afterglow.
Brady, let's get in our time machine and get this thing going. This is WB50ZL. Does anyone need to use the repeater before we start this net? This is our weekly Afterglow movie net. We do this every week. I don't know why, but we can't break the habit. We pick a movie. Actually, I never pick movies, despite what Tom says. He picks them. And they make us watch them, no matter how bad the movie is. Saturday night at 10:30, we have a discussion where we all try and sound smarter than we are. So tonight's is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, dudes. And this is what Tom has written about it. The phone booth traveled quickly through the time currents with swirls of colorful time particles. I don't know what a time particle is. Another similarly outfitted time machine in the form of a police call box heading the other way almost collided with a phone booth. Dude, exclaimed one of the phone booth occupants, shouted the lone police call box occupant. You are on the wrong side of the time stream. The stranger replied back, no, you are on the wrong side of the time stream. Of course, this all depended if you were from the Commonwealth Gallifrey, where you passed on the left, or if you were from San Dimas, California, where you passed on the right. Dude, join us for one of the intentional science fiction comedies, and we all live to tell about it. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Music from Big Pig. Okay, we're going to do check-ins. And once your name, you know the drill. Phonetic name and your phonetic call sign and your name. And whether or not you saw the movie. So we'll start with short time and low power. Please come now. Okay, we'll take regular check-ins. It is not required that you have seen the movie. You probably have heard a lot about it, and or you can make comments about all the time travel problems that we have, and can certainly put in your 2 best worth. So regular check-ins, please come now.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony, grid 1030. Oh wait, wrong ad. Dallas.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving. I've seen some or all this movie in the distant past, but I've not seen it recently. So I'm probably just going to be listening and not talking. Inside BB.
November 5, Hotel Yankee Papa, Tom and Irving. We re-watched it on Friday night. It was fun.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu. In their welfare, yes, I've seen it. Not sure at the Mount. I'll stay there. KG5BTW.
K5ANE in Richardson. Yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville. Yep, I saw it last night.
Alpha Charlie 9, Kilo Victor, Romeo and Grapevine. Yeah, seen it a couple times and then rewatched it today.
let's take those check-ins. NT5TM, Tony, you did say whether you had seen it.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I have several times. NT5TM.
All right, then N5BB, Bill, who's just going to listen. N5HYP, Tom. KG5BZWJ. K5ANE, Kane. KE5ICX, Tom. And AC9KV, Romy. And everybody else has seen it. Okay, do we have any Echolink check-ins?
Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, and Sherman on Echolink, and yes, I have seen the film. And another interesting fact is I had the 12-inch single Big Pig Breakaway on vinyl before the movie came out, and I still have it. KF5 PDF.
Okay, we got KF5 PDS, Billy on Echolink, and she has seen the movie. Do we have any other general check-ins? Please come now.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean Fort Worth, yes, I've seen it. Just listening though.
Okay, I think the call was Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, John, just listening. Let me know if that call sign's not correct. Okay, well, let's launch this thing. As usual, we'll go down the list and talk about the plot, and then circle back around and talk about characterization, and then special effects. So we'll start with Tony, NT5TM, plot.
Good evening, and thank you. Aaron and I have different favorite parts about the plot of this movie, but in all, of course, we both liked it. I find it heartwarming that this is basically, a movie about friendship. Unlike, say, Space Battleship Yamato, not everyone has to die in battle, nor, as in so many stereotypical American movies, do we have to kill off the characters one by one until we end up with a happy romantic couple. Instead, they can just be friends and work together. And I like that, because I hardly ever die honorably in battle, but I sure like having friends. Aaron particularly enjoys the fact that in this movie you get to see historical figures being, well, just normal and coping with normal situations. The plot has a lot of great asides in it. I mean, we get to see Napoleon Bonaparte subjected to Ziggy Piggy, Ziggy Piggy. And all the different ways that Socrates and Billy the Kid get along. That might be lapsing into characterization, but it's also kind of plot because this is a plot with a lot of asides and diversions. They don't hesitate to just take a tour through things that make us smile. High school was, in real life, unpleasant and scary and intensely clannish, but this movie manages to make the clannishness come out okay because it's the goofballs who end up saving the world. And finally, a great, just a great feature of the plot is the way in which music ends up being of great importance in the long term. And weirdly enough, more than the time travel, certainly. It's the most realistic part of this movie. We all remember Beethoven and Mozart and Vivaldi. If you can tell me who the mayor of Beethoven's hometown was, I'll give you a prize, because, yeah, they might have enjoyed being the petty tyrant of Upper Middlesdorf somewhere in Germany, but it's the music and the art we all remember in the long term. So it's weird that this plot has such an important piece of realism, but nice. NC5TM.
Thank you. N5HYP, Tom, go ahead.
Hey everybody, this is Tom, N5HYP. Holly and Anna and I sat out in the backyard and watched it. It was again, a wonderful romp. Anna really wanted to see it again because we all have. We saw it when it came out back in the 80s, and it's just a funny little romp. And really from a plot standpoint, there's a couple of interesting things that I'm sure even that Tom General would comment on later on. You've got to wonder, okay, you've now kidnapped all these historical figures and you've exposed them to 20th century San Dimas, California, and so you're going to end up having affect the timeline in so many ways. I also just kind of loved, a lot of the 80s references, things that 80s hair and just all that stuff. Looking back at what now is 35 years ago. Oh my gosh! So anyway, it was a good ride. Can't take it seriously, but you're not supposed to anyway. It's N5HYP, back to net.
Alrighty, Jay, KG5BZW, go ahead.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo's a whiskey. It just is not a favorite of mine. It's okay. Yeah, it's kind of cool that you get to see the historical figures attempt to, it's the other side of being famous that you don't ever really see, and well, they have their own take on things, but it's just one of those things that's just so silly. It's just, for me, it's just, ironically, it's a little bit too silly, and I'm a lover of silly things. Maybe it's just not the right type of silly for me. I don't know. There's not really much I can say. I don't hate it. It's just not a favorite. The plot, well, I mean, like others have said, you can't take it seriously. It's kind of interesting. The last bit, the climax, where you finally get to see all the famous figures that give their reports is actually pretty cool, I guess. But the whole thing, honestly, it seems a little bit long. I mean, and obviously they have to interact somehow with these guys and everything, but it was kind of tiring. That's all I have for now. KG5BZW, back to that.
Alrighty, K5ANE. Go ahead, Kane.
So, yeah, overall I kind of like this movie, but it's a movie I've been meaning to see for a long time, and I had a lot of hype for it, and I love Keanu Reeves' movie, even the weird ones, but overall I just kind of left this movie kind of wanting more. It seems like there were just so many of these historical characters that they were trying to pull in and, you know, have all these little assigns on, that it seems like there wasn't any depth to any of it. It seemed like they were constantly rushing through these little side gag scenes, and I don't know, it felt kind of shallow, when it felt like they could have done more and they could have had more of a plot, but it just, I don't know, it just kind of seemed like they were constantly trying to rush through all these little asides that didn't really have, you know, didn't necessarily have a ton of character significance or whatnot, and you know, they didn't spend too much time in a lot of these period places. You know, for a lot of these characters, it was just quickly, you know, flash in, grab the guy or girl, and flash out. You know, it was just quickly running through, grabbing people. When, I don't know, it could have been a bit more fun to see, you know, Bill and Ted in history. So yeah, ultimately that's probably how I feel about the plot. And this is K5ANE, back to net.
Alrighty, KE5ICX. Tom, you are up.
Well, thank you, Brenda. This is KE5ICX. I love this movie. I thought it was great fun. The time travel stuff is always a problem. We all know that. I mean, but let's just take a typical example. You know, tomorrow is yesterday. Star Trek, you know, you're thinking that wonderful second season episode where Captain Christopher is kidnapped from his F-106 aircraft and disappears. And then we find out that his son doesn't go on the Earth Saturn probe in 2009. And you're saying, I don't remember that. Well, yeah, they kidnapped Captain Christopher. That's why. That's why you don't know about the Saturn mission. All right, same thing applies here, and Tom mentioned that. What happens to these people? Well, they did return them, but they had this knowledge. So who knows? But could they explain it to anybody? No. Would they believe what they saw? No. Could they explain what a ball is? No. And even if they did, there aren't any balls left anymore, so nobody believed them anyway. Now, I can explain something that was mentioned by Kane, I think, and that is, and I didn't know this until I went through the great and wonderful Oracle Wiki, but there was, the film ran long, and there were a number of scenes that were cut. There was even a dance number, yes, a dance number, a musical dance number in it that was completely cut at the beginning of the film. That did not happen. So the other thing was that some of the, you notice that, you know, Freud, Beethoven, Genghis Khan in this case, and Joan of Arc, they all show up really quick. Well, Joan of Arc's, no, they were here really quick. And Abraham Lincoln, they just dumped him into the thing, into it all. Well, you don't have a lot of time. We've got Billy the Kid and Socrates, those two guys, and we spend a lot of time with them, but everybody else, not so much. Now, they did mention that they were going to give their report in the classroom, but of course that didn't really work out, and they wanted to do this grand finale thing, which actually worked out quite well, which also ate into the rest of what was going on, less time for the other stories. The movie's only 90 minutes long, but I'll tell you what, I didn't mind. It was okay. I've seen time travel movies where you're looking at your watch, not because they're doing time travel, but because the movie is boring. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. So overall, thumbs up, air guitar, the whole thing. I thought the story was quite fun, and when we get to characterizations, that we'll go into that as well. But I loved it. KE5ICX.
Okay, next up, AC9KV. Romy, go ahead.
Hey, good evening, Brenda and the net. AC9KB over here in Grapevine. I liked the movie. I liked it when I was a kid. Actually saw that thing in the theater there. And I liked it when I was a kid, and I saw it a handful of times throughout the years, and rewatched it today with the wife there. And it holds up. It holds up. Does it have holes in the story? Absolutely it does. But what movie doesn't? It has some bigger holes than some films that I can tolerate, you know, if I were to enjoy it nowadays. But it has a nostalgia to it, you know. Yeah, of course, the time travel stuff. Reset. Towards the end there, when they're quickly compiling historical figures, the wife's like, well, they're going to run out of room in that phone booth. She's like, they haven't even got Genghis Khan yet. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. And then it's like, well, who's next? Who else they got to get? And they got to go get Abe Lincoln. And then they got, you know, it's like they weren't even done yet. Like, how are they going to fit? Well, they're got the things. They got the phone booth horizontal now, and they're hanging out of the side. But yeah, it's you know, every time travel movie is going to have its holes and have its problems. But yeah, this one I definitely enjoy it. It's great. It holds up. So back to you, AC9 KB.
Thank you. Well, it's a well-known fact that all time machines are bigger on the inside than they are on the outside. That's how they got all those people in there. All right, Billy, KF5PDS, go ahead.
Thank you, Brenda. Yeah, this is a fun ride. It's just fun romp from beginning to end. And yeah, I like how you kind of take these side trips and follow different characters as they're roaming around San Dimas. And then they bring it back to the central story, and then you go off and follow them again on some adventure. I like that because the whole report they were supposed to do was, you know, historical figures take on San Dimas, and so you got to see them roam around San Dimas and then find out what they thought about it. I thought it was really great the way they did it, and they did it up like a rock concert at the end, so with all the cool lighting and stuff. So yeah, there's a yeah, of course it was just riddled with, you know, time travel paradoxes and holes, but that you did just made it more fun. You know, in this case, you expected some, you know, I don't think from this you expected like super great technical accuracy. You just wanted a fun ride and a fun experience, and it totally delivered. And it's a movie I probably will never tire of because it's fun to pull out and watch time and time again, you know, when you're wanting something fun and, you know, can just not have to worry about, you know, just nothing cerebral, just have a fun romp and time travel, and who better to guide you than George Carlin, you know, so, and as Tony said, you know, you can't really talk about plot without characters because the characters are the plot, you know, so it's really a fun film. And Tony, to answer your question, as of September 27th, the current mayor of Bonn, Beethoven's hometown, is Katja Dorner, who's only the second ever female mayor of Bonn. So I just wanted to answer your question. So I'll throw it back to you, Brenda. It's KF5PDS, back to net.
Yeah, I knew that too. This is WV5OZL, and it is my turn. I love this movie, and it's so full of holes. So every time travel movie has horrible holes in it. You know, you go back and you change things, and repercussions are horrible, and you send diseases back and forth, and it's, you know, it's just problematic. But you can't make a time travel movie without it, so just suspend disbelief and enjoy it. The two characters were just infectious. They have all this joy and enthusiasm, and they're really basically good people. There's just not any malice in them whatsoever. And yeah, they're goofballs, but they're lovable goofballs, and I think that helps drive the story. They they looked long and hard to get the characters. They got Keanu Reeves first, and they kept interviewing other people, and he and Alex Winter really hit it off. They had a lot in common, and they had this natural chemistry with each other, and that's one reason they chose Bill Winter, is because of that. And I'm getting ahead of myself with characters, but backing up about the plot, time travel has been so overdone, but this is kind of different, and you don't feel obliged to pick apart all the details about, well, this wouldn't have happened or that wouldn't have happened, just because it's it's like a ride at Disneyland. You just get on and enjoy it and suspend all of your, suspend disbelief and enjoy the ride. Okay, let's ask for more check-ins, please. None? Okay, now let's do characterization. Tony, NT5TM, what do you think?
Well, thank you, Brenda, and thank you, Billy. I actually had no idea that Beethoven was from Bonn. I just kind of picked him as an example of somebody whose birthplace I didn't know. Turns out his birthplace is also rather well known. But that's kind of neat, thank you. And to echo what both Billy and Brenda said, they've kind of taken the words right out of my mouth. They're just such good kids. They've been through the fear of military academy and failing history and perhaps being in kind of a strange group at high school, not one of the super cool kids, and they've come out of it completely unscathed. You want them to succeed, not because they're saving the world from an alien invader, that kind of happens a little bit, but because, of course you want your friends to do well. They are all of our friends, and that is what really sells this movie, is that just right from the get-go, we get very invested in being Bill and Ted's friends, and we want them to be in our neighborhood, too. So I actually will need to check out. I'm extremely sleepy. I had kind of an early start today, but I'm really enjoying listening to what everyone is saying, and I think Bill and Ted were just great kids. I would have been proud to be their teacher. NT5TM.
Okay, N5HYP. Tom, go ahead. Characters.
Hey, this is N5HYP. I just gotta love George Carlin as whatever his name is, the Rufus, the wise sage from the future who comes by to make sure that our two protagonists get to pass their history exams, history class reports, so that they can save the future and make the world a better place. But just George Carlin, doing the uber cool character was again just kind of a wonderful thing to watch. I mean, having watched George Carlin's comedy from back in the early 70s. He was the very first guest host for the first episode of Saturday Night Live. So that was kind of cool. That's the characterization that I really like. The rest, well, they're just fun. It's N5HYP, back to Matt.
Okay, KG5BZWJ. Go ahead.
KG5BZW. The character. Oh, let me get away from my radio so I don't have so much of an echo here. Yeah, I have to say, I do like Rufus. I'd go too much on George Carlin because he's kind of developed his own mythos in past decade, 2 decades or so. I get to see a tiny bit of his character, his actual, I mean, he's acting a character, so I guess he did a decent job. But anyway, yes, I'd say the kids are Bill and Ted are it's good kids. It's kind of wholesome, and they just want to have fun, and but they don't mean any harm or anything. The dad is rather annoying, and this doesn't exactly explain his motivation, but without his motivation, how would you even have a film? So, anyway. Of course, there's the historical figures. I don't know, because they're all kind of the caricatures anyway, it's kind of hard to judge for or against on that. I don't know. I've been trying to think of something else I can't really say. Hanging over to the next one. Next person, KQ5BW, back to net control.
Okay, K5ANE, go ahead.
So I really liked Bill and Ted as characters. I thought it was really interesting that, they speak so eloquently and yet oftentimes don't say anything at all, they kind of do a great job of showing off that idea when, there's a lot of people out there I can definitely think of, essentially being that kind of person, where you can just speak and sound good, but you're not really saying anything. Like I mentioned earlier, I feel like there are probably almost too many of these historical characters that, they weren't able to really flesh them out enough as much as what I would hope. But I do like the mixture of historical characters that they picked, and I like that it's quite a wide range of, history that they try and represent. It is kind of neat, and to a certain extent, I feel like they did a decent enough job portraying these historical characters, even though they're trying to portray them kind of funny. They weren't massively misrepresenting these characters, I feel. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, though. Maybe that's my own warped sense of history. This is K5ANE, back to net control.
KE5ICX, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad Kane preceded me on these comments because I agree with him. I think that the characters themselves, the historical characters as they were being portrayed, were, while comedic, I thought they were kind of actually pretty close to what we have envisioned them from history, so we gave them a comedic slant. I think one of the interesting things is, and I did see this some of the discussions, they had Socrates, or Socrates, and this is the guy who is supposed to be the one of logical thought, the dawn of Western civilization thought process. It begins, and the thing is, nobody speaks Greek, so nobody knew what the hell he was saying, and nobody knew if he learned anything or could exchange anything. Everybody else in the whole thing pretty much had something they could say or do. we didn't know exactly what Napoleon was saying, but we kind of got a pretty good idea from the reactions that were going on. But the guy who was most likely to tell us something important couldn't get a single thought across because nobody understood Greek. Now, one of the cool things about it is that all the characters placed into contemporary California, you know, or Earth, or whatever you want to call it, and how they fit in so easily. What's wrong with that? I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think sometimes we have a tendency to consider, you know, that people cannot possibly adapt or change or take the environment and turn it into something new and different. I think that adapting is what's really good with people, is the ability to be able to take a circumstance or environment and be able to manipulate it and use their best skills forward. And they do it in a comedic way, but I thought it was kind of cool. What would these individuals do? You've got that Beethoven. Well, of course he would have some sort of electronic keys, and he would be playing, and he would go nuts, and he might even take you know, music that he's heard and then build upon it. Of course he would. On the shoulders of giants, you're always going to do that. So if you hear, see, and feel stuff going on and there's something that you've not been exposed to before, you're going to be probably affected by it, positively or negatively, or in some visceral or a positive way. I don't know. I just think it was kind of cool the way they handled it. You know, and always be, was it awesome to each other and party on? Abraham Lincoln. I read it on the internet. KE5ICX.
Be excellent to each other. That's the word. AC9KV Romy, go ahead.
All right, sorry, I had to wait for the repeater to drop them on crossband. AC9KV, Romy. Yes, ma'am. So, the characters. Bill and Ted, of course, I, you know, thoroughly enjoy those two guys. They are they are obviously the main part of the movie. They couldn't have cast better people, I don't think. The historical characters, as was mentioned, yeah, you know, they look pretty much just like we thought they would look like, or look and act. Yeah, so they did a good job with those. My favorite character, though, believe it or not, he really wasn't in it that much, is the dad. He's just such a eternal, like, you know, runs such a tight ship around the house, to put it lightly. He's just such a stickler, and I'm trying to clean it up. He's so annoying, but then he's not that smart. When I say the dad, I'm talking about Ted's dad. And Deputy Logan, he's always looking for the. He says, "We got your keys down here at the station." This is Deputy Van Halen. I never heard of you before. Oh, I'm new. Okay, this is the largest sheriff's department in the country, but still, you would know if there's a Deputy Van Halen down at your little San Dimas substation. Just the way I'm already on the phone with Colonel Oates. Pack your bags. You're out of here, kid. Essentially, something like that, you know. Colonel Oates. Him and Colonel Oates have been kicking it. So, yeah, that's my take on the characters. And then also the teacher, I like to. He was ready to. He wrote him off. He's like, fails. He put S right next to him. It wasn't even 2:45 yet, and it wasn't even 2:45 yet. He was ready to fail him. So, another one. All right, back to that AC.
Okay, Billy, KF5PDS.
Yeah, I agree agree. Bill and Ted, they're just two lovable, lovable kids. They're just mean well. They just happen to not focus in school, and just some of the things that they said, that the teacher said that alluded to their, non-motivation to study when he said that Caesar was a salad dressing dude. And they just couldn't seem to focus on school until they learned that they were a pivotal part of the future. And I thought it was interesting, the characters that they build them as the three most important people in the world: Clarence Clemens, Seaway Bill, and Martha Davis of the Motels. So Clarence Clemens from the E Street Band, Seaway Bill from the Tubes, and Martha Davis from the Motels, all musicians. So the musicians rule the world in the future that we see. And so it's interesting that Bill and Ted's, their band Wild Stallions, would figure as pivotal historical figures to those people, and they would be revered. So I thought that was really interesting. And I thought it was funny at the end when George Carlin was like, he wants to jam with them, and he is very honored to jam, and he's like, I play a little. And, of course, they edit, so it doesn't look like George actually plays, but it shows, he says, I play a little, and he's, like, playing so much better than Bill and Ted can at the moment, so I thought that was really funny. But just two kids in their garage just want to make some sounds and have a band, and just a lot of fun. The historical characters I especially thought was funny when Mom, makes them do chores before they can go to the mall, and she's got Sigmund Freud vacuuming the cushions, and Beethoven is particularly joyful and cleaning the windows. So I thought that was really funny, and it was sweet. I liked all the side plots, where Tony mentioned earlier, with Napoleon being whisked off to eat the UTE ice cream. That reminded me of a place that we used to go when I was a kid for birthdays in Dallas, if anyone remembers Farrell's. It was very much like that place, so that brought back fun childhood memories. And then, of course, we got to see Napoleon surfing the waves at Waterloo, which was really hilarious because he was cutting in line and cutting in. So it was really hilarious. The portrayals, the actors that they got to play the historical figures were just very well cast. And just seeing, like Genghis Khan let loose in Oshman's with a baseball bat was, just seeing them, in modern situations. It was really funny, the situations they put them in, especially when Abraham Lincoln was getting his photo made and they thought he was running off with the costume. And Beethoven with the keyboards, I especially loved that part because he was really dominating with the keyboards and drew a crowd. So he was able to enjoy modern instruments. So I just thought it was very well done. All the characters interacted well, and you really rooted for Bill and Ted. You really wanted them to come through and pass their report so that they could save the world with music. So all in all, it was a lot of good fun, and makes it so timeless. Just makes it a movie to go back and watch over and over again because you never tire of the lines and just all the good fun that they're having. So there's no gratuitous violence or anything, and no bad language. It's just a lot of good, clean fun. So I really enjoy all the characters and all their interactions. They start as this motley crew, and at the end they seem very united to come through for Bill and Ted, and they're all triumphant at the end. So it was really a great, fun romp. So with that, I'll return it to you. This is KFI PDF, back to Nat.
Thank you, Billy. This is Debbie B50ZL. Well, the dad was a typical authoritarian, overbearing father figure he rules with an iron fist because that's how you get stuff done, how you keep control of things, which is what you have to do to make everything come out right. So he was, perfectly cast as a stereotyped authoritarian dad. The guitar player on Rufus's guitar, the stunt double was Stevie Salas, that's S-A-L-A-S, and he's with some group called IMF. I don't know, I guess I'm too old. Anyway, this movie almost didn't get released. There was some kind of problem with the funding, and when they got it mostly, they were out shopping it, and the suits just hated it. I think, why would anybody want to watch that? So they showed it to some test audiences, and they loved it. So the suits changed their minds, released the movie, and it made a ton of money. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was a lot. An awful lot of money. And of course, we went on to two sequels after that. Obviously, this is a movie made for younger people, and I think that shows. I mean, to me, it's interesting. These characters come up from history, and what do they think about this little town in California? Well, Joan of Arc likes the workout class, and Genghis Khan likes the skateboard and the little weapons, and Napoleon likes the ice cream and the water park, and everything they like is the stuff that teenagers do. So, yeah, I think that's kind of significant. It's like they came and what they brought back was the pop culture, the youth culture of the day. Well, that's all I got to say about that for now. So we'll circle back. Any more check-ins?
So, X-Ray 7, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, Sean from Denton. I have seen the movie.
X-Ray 7, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, Sean, would you like to make some comments on the plot and or characterization?
I absolutely would. Now, we all know Bill and Ted, it's pretty simple. I'll keep my comments short, just like Bill and Ted would. It's a great movie of friends, helping friends, and being there for friends. Without friends, it would be nothing, and that is what this movie shows us within our plot. As far as characters, well, I think all the characters were showed to be good characters of what characters are for the time frame. So it creates pretty much what we thought. Napoleon, well, he was a short little guy. The dad, definitely a dad of the 80s with military background. Yep, he looked like a cowboy. But, yes. Great movie all in all. KX7WTF.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's go back to special effects or anything else you want to say. Everybody seems to have a lot of opinions about this movie. NT5TM Tony. Did we lose Tony?
Yeah, he checked out 819.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I didn't understand that Tony had signed out. Okay. Oh, yes, he did. He said he was sleepy. I'm sorry. I should have noted that. N5HYP, Tom, go ahead.
This is N5HYP. We're talking about special effects or anything else we want to talk about. I mean, there was no real great high-end special effects there, although I kind of, you know, for the 80s, the call box going through the circuits, the time circuits, was, you know, kind of cool for back then. But it was just, again, just a fine ride, a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to seeing the remake 35 years later, how that works. Should be interesting. Back to net, that's all. Good night. Looking forward to next week, maybe. Next N5HYP.
Okay, KG5BZW, Jay.
KG5BZW. So, special effects, music, and whatever else. I really don't have anything to say about that. The music, I could take it or leave it. The special effects, yeah, they were good for the day, I suppose. It certainly, I think, a lot. Well, it's one of those things. It's a lot more. I remember watching it when young and seeing that, and I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool. But yeah, it's one of those things. If you just kind of remember the era, it's fine. Or if you just kind of probably explains it to somebody. I don't know. If they haven't really seen it, I have to admit, it is a little bit sparse, but I mean, that's how a lot of CGI graphics were at that time, and I'm pretty sure that was CGI. It awfully looked like looked awfully a lot like that. What else? I was trying to think. There's obviously there's the real effects for the telephone booth, what term I'm trying to think of? Not real effects, but the camera effects. Then of course the design of that and the feature. The feature. I'm sorry, they had. I know it's supposed to be cool and all, but they could have used at least some color, I think. But hey, it's communicated a vibe, and that's I think it kind of did what it was asked, what was asked of it, if that makes any sense. Let me see. Could have sponsored some other. Well, I mean the shots, the water side shots were actually kind of cool. I'm kind of curious how they did those with the cameras they had back then. Just, I mean, it's not like it was impossible, but just all the extra rigging and whatnot, kind of interesting to think about. I know I'm missing something I'd like to say something about, but I think I've said plenty so far, so I'll hand it over to the next person, KG5BZW.
Okay, K5ANE, go ahead.
So yeah, special effects. This is a very 80s movie. Its style, the way it looks, just like the film style and the way it's framed and everything else is just, it's very 80s, kind of big budget movie feel to it. And I kind of like that. and it looks very appealing. Obviously, its CGI is very limited, being 1980s. You know, that whole, you know, I guess it's like telephone cables or something like that in hyperspace or something that they're riding on. Of course, you know, all those scenes look really cheesy, but I think they're also kind of intended to be kind of cheesy, because that whole, like, you know, it's the phone booth thing that's, you know, making them fly through space. You know, I think they're intentionally making it a little bit cheesy, but, you know, they're still limited by 1980s technology. I feel like they did a really good job on casting the historical figures, and they did a great job with the costuming of them. They seem to really work pretty well. I really thought Napoleon's outfit was really high quality. I mean, it looked really sharp. You know, sometimes a lot of productions might, you know, skimp on costuming and things of that nature, but they did a good job, and every single time there was, you know, a lot of characters and historical pieces. You know, they had a lot of costumes and things, you know, that were always seemingly decently period specific. So I really kind of appreciated that. So even though it's not a ton of, you know, high budget sci-fi kind of thing going on in this movie, I feel like they did a pretty good job with the special effects. And just overall, especially that ending series, you know, the whole lighting and having that whole show, a pretty good job on that, I think, personally. And yeah, just overall, the whole movie looks good and is done well. The sound quality was great, and just overall produced very well. This is K5ANE, back to net control.
Okay, who is next? KE5ICX.
Well, thank you, Brenda. Let's see, some things interesting about the film. Well, first off, Chris Matheson. I had to look that name up. I had to look him up because I thought, I wonder, is he related to the world-famous Richard Matheson? Yes, he is. He's the son of Richard Matheson. And there's another, I think David Matheson, if I remember correctly, is a brother. His brother is also a writer. And he has done all three movies, along with, I think, Ed Solomon, who was also his co-writer on the film. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I was looking through here. They have Easter eggs from Bill and Ted Face the Music, where cameos. Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon actually appeared in the movie, the original, and then the Face the Music, which came out here just a few weeks ago. They appear in the what is it? The ice cream place there as the stupid waiter. That was Ed Solomon, and the ugly waiter, Chris Matheson. And then they also appeared in the Face the Music as Chris Matheson as the ugly seance member, and Ed Solomon as the stupid seance member. So there you have it. Ugly and stupid. That's the two of them. There was mentioned about Big Pig. I love that music. I did not have the 12-inch single. I did get the CD when CDs were just being super popular at the time, and I got that from actually before the movie came out. I thought it was really great when I saw it in the movie, or heard it in the movie. And Dave Dixon out of Detroit on the WDET, which is the public radio station. He played all sorts of crazy music, and Big Pig was one of his favorites, and it turned it into a favorite of mine, simply because it's all percussion. There's no guitar or anything, even though in this movie guitars are very important, but they don't appear in the opening sequence with a band that doesn't use guitars. As far as the overall look of the film, and that is something you would expect from 1989, not 1985. I messed up on the date, I'm sorry. But overall, I thought it was quite enjoyable, and 90 minutes was perfect for the film. I think if it had gone any longer, it probably would have dragged along. So overall, I thought it was really great. I think everybody made excellent comments about the film. You can see why there were another sequel after that, then finally one that was made, which, by the way, if you have not seen Face the Music, I think you'll like it. It is actually cute. You got the offspring, the two girls, who take on the roles of Bill and Ted, and they do an admirable job about the whole thing. So, thumbs up, loved it. Air guitar to everyone. KE5ICX.
Alrighty, AC9KV Romy.
In terms of the effects, I really enjoyed them. I mean, and they still hold up too for the date that the movie came out, or the time period that it came out, 89. I think they're pretty decent. I don't think they're bad at all, to be honest. They do just enough to, the FOMO's traveling down those, when it's time traveling there. I think it's great, great effects. And when it's coming in and out of, the different time periods when it's landing and whatever. I enjoy them. Let's see what else we got here. Real quick, I wanted to add. A couple years ago, I was having a couple drinks down here in downtown Grapevine. The old lady was out of town, and I chatted up some gentleman. He worked for 7-Eleven, and he was asking me. I don't know, for some reason got on the subject about what I know about Circle K. They have Circle K's in Cleveland and this and that. And I, without boring the net, I informed them that they're kind of new in the area in the last 20 years or so. But I did know them from Bill and Ted. And apparently back in the day, 7-Eleven was approached. They were approached first to be the store in the movie. And they thought that this movie was going to be a horrible piece of garbage. And they wanted nothing to do with it. So that's one thing that they regretted not being a part of was the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure movie. So there you go. I just wanted to add that. That's what was conveyed to me from a supposed 7-Eleven employee, corporate there. So, all right. Thank you so much, AC9KV.
Okay, KF5PDS, Billy.
I agree with what was said before. Yeah, the special effects are great for the time. I thought it was interesting that the whole opening credits were computer generated, so that was one of the earliest instances of that much CGI being used in a film for the 80s. And something interesting that I ran across in reading an article is it's on a merchandising of Bill and Ted's Excellent cereal from the late 80s and early 90s, and so I thought that was really interesting. I never knew that they came up with a cereal. So I thought that was funny. But yeah, I think the special effects are great for what it was, and yeah, it's meant to be kind of cheesy. So like I said earlier, you don't expect like perfection and perfectly technical, accurate details. You just expect a fun ride, and the special effects deliver with their wild ride through time on the phone booth that they jury-rig with chewing gum and pudding cups to get them through and get them back home in time to deliver the report. So it was a lot of good fun. So with that, I'll return it to you. This is KF5PDS, back to net.
Okay, and X7 WTF, Sean.
Well, I agree. I agree with everything that was said. The effects definitely hold up for the time period. To case in point that, my 10-year-old, who I watched this with the other day, kept him entertained. He enjoyed every minute of it. And yes, they were kind of cheesy by today's standards, but they were great, excellent, and it's always fun to watch just see the difference, how we've come from those great movies of the 80s to great movies of today. And I'll leave it at that. KX7WTF.
Okay, thank you. Well, I took my kids to see this when they were about 8 and 10, and they loved it and quoted from it, and they just thought it was the best movie ever. The phone booth, just looking at Wikipedia here, the worst thing they did was the phone booth travel through the circuits of time. And it was difficult because in order to come up with desired effects, the filming required multiple people to stand inside the booth, which was on a gimbal in front of a green screen. Numerous equipment and prop failures ensued, and Keanu Reeves called it a death ride canoe from the worst carny ride you've ever been on. Wow, that's the glamour of Hollywood. Aside from that, special effects were just not really a big part of the equation, which is okay. And I don't have too much else to say. I think we have covered everything, so I'm going to quit there. WB5OZL. Anybody else want to check in? Anybody else?
KG5PMN. You can put me down for the count. I've been listening from the beginning. KG5PMN.
KG5BMN. I'm sorry, we doubled. What is your name, please?
It's Kilo Go 5, Papa Mike November, James up here in Oklahoma. I did not see the movie, but I was listening in. KG5PMN.
Do you have any comments? Okay, anybody else have any last-minute comments?
KX7WTF.
KX7WTF, go ahead.
To throw a ham radio spot to this movie. Anybody remembers when the antenna broke? Is that the way we would have fixed the antenna? KX7WTF.
Does anybody have an answer?
Oh, I'll bite. KE5I6.
KE5ICX, go ahead.
Well, and Tony would mention this. I know he would have chimed in on this one. Is that a substandard antenna is better than no antenna at all. So yes, you would do anything you could to try and fix whatever it is. Do we know what the phone booth's actual power output is? It could be very low, it could be very high. They're from the future, so maybe they use LEDs or solid state. low power stuff to run the telephone booth? We don't know. We just don't know. Could it have, if it had vacuum tubes or it had, high power output, power output, then it might be, maybe the bubble gum wouldn't have worked. I don't know. And what would be the resistance if it's not, you don't have a soldering iron or any of that? I don't know. Maybe power. It's all surface, right? It's all surface. So how that would work out, I don't know. But I will tell you that it is the future, sending back stuff to the past. This is absolutely minimalistic as compared to other time machines we've seen before, which use a lot of power and lots of mechanical stuff. So mechanical causes friction, causes noise in the lines and all of that. But in this case, all they've got is a Western Electric telephone payphone system that is attached to a time machine. I mean, look at the DeLorean. The DeLorean needed a lot of power. You had to go and steal from the Iranians to get the appropriate power source to make that thing run. This one doesn't need that. Probably runs on AA batteries of the future. I don't know. So the antenna, yeah, all right. I've convinced myself. Bubblegum fixes antennas. KE5ICX.
Well, what he should have had in his backpack is duct tape and WD-40. That fixes 99% of everything. But they didn't belabor the, how does this time machine work? They didn't try and explain it. A lot of movies do. With the science babble, tell you how this time machine works, and it's just, totally imaginary. My favorite time machine of all times in a movie was in Primer, where it was just simply a cardboard box. So I'm still working on that. I've gone through several cardboard boxes and done work. All right, Tom, do we have a movie for next week?
Why, yes, we do. I'm desperately trying to see what it is. Hold on. I'll have it here in just a moment. Still looking. Where are the list of movies? It put the old school Facebook thing up, so I have to go through and find it. Hold on. More files. There we go. Upcoming movie list. And the next movie in the list is... okay. Everybody ready for 0 Hour from 1957? That's the film that Airplane was built upon. Somebody asked for it, so we've got it. 0 Hour from 1957. I will send the information in. If you're not part of the email list, you might want to join. Send an email to me at Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray KE5ICX@yahoo.com. And then the following week is an unusual film with lots of Apollo hardware in it called Stowaway to the Moon from 1975. I found this one through the Svengoolie group. It's made for TV, BBC Movie of the Week, I think. Yeah, it's got kids in it. But it looks kind of interesting. But next week is 0 Hour from 1957. That's it for me, KE5ICX.
Very good. Well, we had 12 participants tonight, which is a pretty good batch, and appreciate everybody's wonderful comments and all your participation. So we're going to close down the net. This is WB5OZL Clear.